Today I tried a brand new game. Well, brand new to me, not necessarily brand new, although it is fairly new. I think it was released originally in 2021, although it only relatively recently came to Steam. Oddworld Soulstorm. Now, I'm a big fan of the original two Oddworld games, Abe's Odyssey and its sequel slash spin-off, Abe's Exodus, and the latter of which is one of my absolute favourite games ever. Munch's Odyssey I haven't really played much of, and Stranger's Wrath, I've played a fair bit of it, and I really enjoyed it, and I really do need to finish it off. But the first two I've played so much. Abe's Exodus in particular, I have just caned and rinsed that game. There's nothing left in it for me, and yet I could probably go back and play it in a heartbeat. It's that good. So, Soulstorm. Well, before I get into this, I should really discuss New and Tasty, which was the remaster. Well, it was definitely a remake of the first game, and they redid it in 3D, and it was fine, but it felt very imprecise. The original games are the thing I really like about them is that they are really precise, and you know exactly what's going to happen, and there's no real there's no surprises, you know. It's grid based. It's not like you don't see a grid on the screen, but it is definitely grid based. Like when you move, you always move a certain amount of space. So you know exactly where you are, and you know exactly how you can climb up certain ledges and how you can climb down and where you're going to land when you jump. It's very precise, and it really relies on that precision. And New and Tasty lacked that precision. It was in... I really haven't... I should really have explained from the start, but we're going back and forth here. It's fine. If you haven't played the original Oddworld games, they are 2D cinematic platformers. No 2D. They also don't scroll, so they are what's called flip screen platformers, where you can only see one screen at once, and it doesn't scroll at all. So once you get to the edge of one screen, you get to the beginning of the next screen, which is kind of crucial to the gameplay. It's a little bit frustrating sometimes, but it really actually works well because it's such a precise game. Once you leave that grid and you enter another grid, you it's kind of necessary because of certain things that happen within the space of a single screen that then cannot enter the space of the next screen, which is it's part of the game. So when you make that 3D, for example, an enemy who's in the background who can shoot you, they can only shoot you while you're on the same screen as them, but then if you move to the next screen, they can't see you. 3D, that's not quite as clear where the distinction is, so you might still be able to see that enemy, but that enemy can't shoot you because you're not close enough to them. And that will be a problem if it was scrolling, but, 3D scrolling is, long as it is broad. But also, when they made New and Tasty, it was no longer grid-based. So when you move around, you move freely across the landscape. And while that makes sense in principle, in practice it doesn't feel anywhere near as good as a result. You can't always tell if you can, for example, jump to a ledge, because the jump height is not it's not definite. It is, honestly, it's really difficult to explain without showing you some gameplay, which it's a vlog. I can't do that. Also, I would need to get some gameplay, and that would make this take forever. So, yes. The point is, New and Tasty was not as precise as the original game, and therefore it didn't feel as good to me, and therefore I'm not really a fan of New and Tasty. Now, Soulstorm has the same problem, which is a shame because the graphics and the art style are incredible. It looks very similar to the original games, and that's significant because the original games used a lot of CGI and pre-rendered stuff, and they had some of the most stunning games ever. And to see that in actual 3D and have it look properly good, it's amazing. That's the best way of putting it. It's just incredible to see. It still doesn't look quite as good to me, but then, 240p life and all that, so it's never going to look as good. But the problem is the thing about the precision. I've not even made it past the first level partly because I ran out of time and had other things to do with my day, which is the unfortunate part. I can't just sit and play a game all day. But also because there were enemies in the background, and it was not clear when they could see me, when they couldn't, and therefore I just kept getting myself killed. And it just wasn't clear. It wasn't clear, and it wasn't precise, and that was a big problem. The other problem I had is that there's certain parts where you have to use the mouse, and I want to control it like the originals, where it's the keyboard, you press space to jump forward, you press up to jump up. It doesn't work like that, and I wish there was like a classic control option, because that's how I'm used to playing Oddworld. And, you can say all the things about, oh, well, it's a new game, you need to get used to it because it's new, and it's the future, and you need to stop living in the past. Maybe so, but... Well, I was about to say, if they change the controls for Halo, then you'd be annoyed. They flipping did, like every stinking game, and that was really annoying. And it was great in Reach when they let you pick a control scheme, because it was so frustrating. But no, the point I'm making is that the game is made to be an Oddworld platformer, but it doesn't feel enough like an Oddworld platformer. It feels a bit like a halfway house between a classic SNES-style platformer, like a Mario, and a cinematic platformer, i.e. Oddworld. It's not precise enough to be a cinematic platformer, but it's not loose and free enough to be a Mario platformer. So it's just somewhere in between, and it just does not feel good at all, and it's really frustrating. So all the time I was playing it, I mean, after the initial, oh my god, this looks amazing, oh my god, this sounds amazing, it feels amazing, all I was thinking was, I wish this was in 2D, and I wish it was flip screen, and I wish it was just like the originals, because the originals felt really good, and there's not been another game since that's been quite like that. Anyway, maybe one day I'll make something like that myself. So, I need to play more of it, because I am fascinated where the story goes. I'm a bit confused by it. It does seem to be somewhere in between Abe's Odyssey and Abe's Exodus, except Abe's Exodus came right after Abe's Odyssey, so I don't know where it fits in canonically, and so I want to know, and I'm really interested to find out what they've done with the story here. It's possible that it's one massive retcon even, but well, hopefully I'll find out sooner or later, and if I do, then, well, maybe I'll have a video about it. Until then, thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you tomorrow. A big moon was before me, and its face was my paw. Then I fell off a cliff and smashed my head, and some big face appeared and said I was dead. Today I decided to play a brand new game. I know, a video game that I've never played before. How can that be? Well, for, I don't know actually when it was released. I think it was a couple of years ago, 2021. Oddworld Soulstorm was released. Now, I'm a big fan of the first two Oddworld games, Abe's Odyssey and it's a sequel. They call it a spin-off. It's a sequel, Abe's Exodus. And that Abe's Exodus is one of my absolute favourite games of all time. And the thing that I love about them is the fact that, well, it's a thing that not everybody likes about them, but they just feel so precise as games. So in case you're not aware, the original two Oddworld games are cinematic platformers, as they're known. And that essentially means, rather than like in a Mario game, you can run at top speed and jump, and that's the extent of your abilities. In a cinematic platformer, you tend to have more realistic control over your character. So, in the case of Oddworld, it means that rather than being able to leap 50 feet in the air and then come flying down and not suffer any real consequences of that. Let's say you want to drop down, you have to climb down a ledge, and then you basically have to climb down safely, otherwise you'll break your legs. And I've not really explained that very well. Let me start again.